Thank you, Pierre Victorio, for your invitation to your TPOD laboratory. So, what is typology? We could simply say that it's a way of classifying types, and this classification allows to make affiliations between architectural projects. And if typology allows classification, typology are for architects a tool that allows us to operate in the complexity of the project, thanks to a repertoire classifying the resolutions by family, by types, from which we can design. In a way, typology organizes our field of knowledge and constitutes the cultural base on which we can rely. But what about classification? You'll see I'm totally crazy about the question of classification. You'll see some mathematical tables, for example, in my project. So I'm really interested in this aspect of this intrinsic part of the typology question. So how to classify the knowledge? The French writer, Georges Perec, he wrote a lot about tidying, filling, lists, but also about space, and is very interesting for architects, wrote this about classification. What exactly am I being asked? Do I think before I classify? Do I classify before I think? How do I classify what I think? How do I think when I want to classify? So it means that classification and mean are extremely linked. What also say this about the library? Every library fulfills a double need, which is often also a double mania. That of keeping certain things, the books, and that of arranging them in certain ways. So the first one will be rather, in the first place, to conserve, to preserve with the aim to make types evolve and to interpret them in their own way, of course, and to make the permanent forms of architecture evolve, and to make his library alive. The second one would be rather, in the first place, to arrange books in a certain way. So because what's interesting him in this this type are the interstices in which he could sleep, in fact. And it's also to disturb his library so that the books formerly separated can be gathered together for reasons that interested him. So I'm on this side. And there is no one side better than the other one. I think that it's the starting points that are different, but at the end, it's the same because the one makes the whole and the one classified differently can also do it because he knows the contents of each book and that this culture he carries within him. So why am I in this side? Because of my character, my own character, because I think that when somebody told me to do something, I'm okay to do it if I can have my own opinion and my own reasons to do it, but also because of the path I have chosen as an architect. Doesn't want to go. Mm. Okay. So just a few minutes, explain that I'm an architect and I divide my time between practice in my own office in Paris, so in France, and I'm teaching here in Lausanne. And 10 years ago, I made an important choice that of devoting myself exclusively to the question of the social collective housing. And I work in this topic in the both sides, in Paris and in Lausanne. And this is my commitment to an architecture that addresses everyone. And also because housing design waves very close links between spatial dimensions and social dimensions. And that's what interests me. But you know what, housing design is so constrained in France that we feel as if we can't do anything. So the reason why I'm in this side of the people who are interested to arrange their book in different way is because I look for interstices between constraints, some norms that were put on the types of housing and that frozen them. For me, it's the only way to escape from this situation, and it suits me. In fact, for me, it's like a game to make the projects. Unfortunately, for some decades, capitalist mechanisms have set in stone the most profitable and optimist typologies, and making them more effective and more economic, they have degraded their quality and limited the freedom of architects to navigate freely in this repertoire. The norms, the rules, and the regulations based on these principles have definitely fossilized these types and produced new fixed standards that limit the exploratory character of the typology research. For example, here you see the evolution of the typology of a linear building to be more effective and profitable. Here, for example, to limit the number of staircases with a long, dark corridor, and to find more and more surface, the building is thicker than the initial building, and each dwelling is smaller than before to distribute a maximum of dwelling by the same corridor, whose maximum length is blocked by fire regulations. And it's also financially more profitable to sell 10 little dwellings rather than 6 big ones. And the dwellings lose their through aspect and is now very often mono-orientated, with the idea that in the night you live in the right side of the plan, and in the day in the left side of the plan. So in fact, you live in the half of your little dwelling. And because of the evolution of the rules, including handicap standards, fire escape, the rules that makes that the bathrooms and circulations take more and more space in the plan, at the same time as the global surface of the living room decreases. And it contains now the kitchen in the same volume, and the kitchen is in the dark in the front side. And the rooms are now so small that you can only put a bed on them. You just sleep and nothing else. In short, a chain of consequences that are a catastrophe and a hell for the architect who wants to win the game. So, you know, for my first project, I received a program. It was a very big book. And in the cover, I can read 40 collective social housing. But in fact, about collective word, nothing, absolutely nothing, except the fact that I have to put a lot of dwellings in the same slot. And no words about the social project. Social was only discussed by the low cost of the construction. But about housing, a billion words that defines room by room what is each one and define it very strictly. So in fact, it continues to do this. So I wanted to concentrate in this collective social housing, but I understood that I was not asking the same question. And in fact, mine was how to design spaces to live alone and together, actually. Because society is becoming atomized socially, and it's a problem. So you can see how we are moving away from what we might call conventional households compositions with father, mother, and children to very small units. It can be seen like a factor of solitude, but at the same time, new forms of communities, of relationships are emerging that are less conventional and less hierarchical than before. So in fact, I think it's a chance for architects to put these things on the table and find the forms that can emancipate this reality. So then how to shift the gaze and how to change the point of view. I will just present two projects and finish with an exercise with my children, my students. So the first project is 40 dwellings, social housing units in Dijon. And to get out of our own reflexes, we changed the scale of reflection, and we didn't design a project of 40 dwellings as was asked, but a project of 240 rooms. We've done a sort of atomization of the program, just like the Atomist Society of which I spoke before. And it was a sort of strategy to never use the words housing or dwelling during our discussions with the clients, and to get him and us too out of his reflexes that prevent experimentation. Because I think that if we always use the same tool, we always produce the same shapes. So we took here a starting point that guides each future decision that we have to take in the project. So as you see, the building is situated at the frontier between little houses and future high buildings. So here is our new vocabulary based on a letter that is a square room whose side measures 3.6 meters, and its 30 meters square does not exist in the social housing programs, for example. So it's sort of an unexpected room. And these rooms are connected and disconnected by large sliding doors, which allows the creation of double rooms for the living room, for example. And it also allows everyone to choose freely whether to be alone and together. Here is the exterior rooms, the terrace. And you see, if you use 2 rooms for the bedroom, you still have 2 rooms for the living room. And depending on the place you choose for the rooms, you can choose to free up views across the room diagonally or around the exterior room. Here are the 3 spatial configurations. And through the day, the space can evolve according to the people who are there. And each room is a small individual living room that can also open up in a large common area. And it's also possible to live differently, of course, with shared flats of co-working. And sometimes even one of the rooms can also have its own access for a small office, for example. So all are arranged in a repetitive structure. But it's not a repetitive project because each room has its own quality, its solar orientation, its views, and its relationship with the other rooms. And in our head, we had Dinner and Dinner, the project in Java, and we use it to make a sort of map of equal rooms. And to vary the pleasures, we have created 2 types of window. These are inhabited windows where everyone can extract themselves from their home and connect directly with their outside world. The storage units are placed against the facade, and this forms a kind of hiding place. So here, intimacy is not at the back of the house, as in a cave, but projected on the front, on the facade. And on the garden side, it's a bench where we can dream. We design the facade from the inside and not from the outside. And on the street side, it's an alcove with a curtain that allows me to extract myself completely. I can enter in the space, close the curtain, and be alone in the street from home. A kind of strong relationship between oneself and the world. So I go out, here is a building, it's a kind of big step. And because it's situated between small houses and future high buildings, The building integrates in a unique envelope individual, grouped, or collective access, a way to live differently but together. And you see here the 120 windows on the garden side and the 120 windows on the future street side. And a shared space perched in the treetops. And here, the other side. So you can see that from this point of view, it's an individual system, and in the other side, it's a collective one. So this is a project of 36, I think, dwellings in Paris. And you will understand the mathematics that is not difficult, is 4 is 1 plus 3. So we were invited in a competition for a competition of a housing project in Paris, in a new development in front of a huge future park. This one. But our first disappointment was that the urban type of the urban villa was imposed. And for us, it was a nonsense. I explain. In a urban villa, you logically have a core with a stair and the lift that serves 6 dwellings with 4 corner dwellings and 2 other small ones. But in our situation, in our urban situation, it's a nonsense because half of the dwellings can't see the future huge park on the south. So we thought it's stupid. So we made our own rule. We divided the urban villa in 6 equal strips for 2 reasons: to offer the best situation to each dwelling and to make an equity for inhabitants. So this is a decision that doesn't seem rational by the point of view of the urban villa type, but in our point of view, it's really rational and pragmatic. This first decision conducts each decision we have to take in time of the development of the project. So in our building, each inhabitant lives with the park. So strips, the 6 strips are separated by thick walls that contain technical elements, the structure, the vertical fluids, the kitchen equipments, storage, etc. It's a way to free up the space out of the strips, sorry. But what you see here is that on the left and on the right, dwellings have 3 facades, so it's very comfortable. But in the middle, we have a very long space that measures 18 meters long. What is ordinarily absolutely impossible to manage in any way, in any type, because of the problem of the light. So for this problem, we created a double high space in front of the park for those dwellings to catch the light and open the view in direction of the sky. So we presented the project and we researched the client by showing this comparison with Le Corbusier to explain to him that 18 meters was not really, really huge. In fact, it was not a problem. So here is the section with the thick walls, and in the center you see the double high overlaid. They are arranged in a staggered pattern from floor to floor. So our client was very enthusiastic with the project, and we were quite surprised by this. But in fact, for him, our idea allows him to increase the price of the different dwellings because each one had a view on the park and a south orientation that he didn't expect to have at the beginning. But if you have a look with attention in this plan, you discover that to make those qualities possible, we need 2 cores for the distribution. Currently, this is totally impossible in the current situation of housing production in France. And in fact, we hypnotized our clients and he never discussed this point. So it's okay for him to have 2 staircases and 2 lifts. Just to take time to understand the way the double high are superposed. So in this project, we got 2 types of facade. one side of the park is a fully glazed facade with windows that are opening in the manner of an accordion. Each living room is extended by a balcony. And for the other facades, these are long, continuous, horizontal windows that make it easy to furnish small spaces. So come back to the type of the urban villa. Urban villa usually produced 4 homogeneous facades, and each one combines large windows for the living room and small windows for the bedrooms. For architects, it forced him to pass time and energy to have a sort of compositional work for the facades to make them nice. But it also forced them to resolve the combinations between different rules and different norms, because rules and norms are different if you are in the case of a bedroom or in the case of a living room, for acoustic reason, for minimum of quantity of light, for example, etc. So it often conducts to upgrade the different performances, and it's a lot of money that goes to compositional reasons. But here we created a strange urban villa. Here the 4 homogeneous facades are transformed on heterogeneous system. So 4 facades are transformed in 1 plus 3 facades, and each one has a specific reason. And we don't have any discussion of the composition of the facade. Each facade resolves a very specific regulation, so each one makes a real economy by this way. And the economy allows us to pay the 2 core of circulation, for example. We like to put the money in the right place in the quality for inhabitants. So here is the facade from the park. So Pierre Vittorio, you just asked us about teaching, and you've been here in our last critic, and you've see this sort of the sort of wallpapers that we've made with the students, and they've made in the same time in their projects. It's a way, it's a specific way to manage with the discipline of the plan. I'm happy to present them, and perhaps some students are there here now. In my office, in some projects, we work on wavings, kind of lace, because we try to interweave, to combine the small dimensions of the program to make something that is bigger. We also try to make this connection and disconnections between neighbors. We try to protect the intimacy of each box, and at the same time to propose a principle of continuity. It's a way to concretely look for a combination of living alone and together. Of course, deeply in our brain, we were fascinated by non-stop city, and we didn't directly think about it when we made the wallpapers for the first time, but it's clear that our unconscious fascination conducts us to make it. So in certain projects, we are making those wallpapers, and they are combining the small and big dimensions, and they are intimately linked to the territory in which they are. This one too, and in the context, this one too. And the pattern is a question of geometry, a question of composition. It's a way to make a little principle building a very big dimension, big scale. And with the students here, for example, kitchens that are make some links between collective spaces and other one. It's an exercise. Try to be really sharp on this question of the strong ability for the plan to organize the life alone and together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sophie, for this really fantastic presentation. And in a way, in the context of this symposium, of course, this is the first presentation, but we'll see also the other two presentations that will follow that in a way look to the type from the point of view of design, of making projects. And after seeing the presentation, I'm even more convinced that somehow your work is an important contribution to the discussion on type, just because as we were discussing also in the morning, in a way, it seems to me that your design, the project that you propose is a revisionist project. I mean, it's like, you have a given brief, which imply a type, and then you just work to reform that type in a way that open up some unexpected moments or solutions that are not, that somehow they are not implied in the brief, you know. So I would say that's actually what I would say it's a typological design. If we think typological design not just as transmission of norms, but as a revision of norms, so as a revision of habits. But I was of course very fascinated by the patterns. Because, of course, there is something very, I mean, they're very beautiful in a way. Also, as as architects, of course, we have a graphic, how to say, mania, or you use actually the word mania. So there is something really that obsesses about architecture as the production of figures and compositions. And it seems to me that these patterns, in a way, brings back something that has been a major taboo in postmodern architecture, and I think until today, which is repetition. Of course, you could say that these patterns allows variations, but for me, the main aspect of a pattern is its repetition. And it seems to me that also in your design work, you are not afraid of repetition. I mean, that repetition, it seems to me that is a quality rather than a problem, no? Of course, there are variations, and in a way, it seems that you need repetition to make variation. I mean, like, you're not an architect that make variations without first, in a way, establishing a kind of relentless repetition. So I want you maybe to elaborate on this idea of repetition.
Yes. It's funny because I come back from Marfa when I've seen Donald Judd's work in aluminium that is repetitive cubes, but that always kept different lights from the sky of Marfa. That is absolutely marvelous. And I'm totally convinced that repetition is a tool to make appear the difference, in fact. And, in Marfa, when I saw this work of art, my first vision was, wow, Donald Judd, what a wonderful artist. But after spending time in this work of art, at the end, I totally forgot Donald Judd, and I was with the light. So for me, repetition, grids are here for us to disappear as an architect. It seems to be a way to be in a sort of authority. But in fact, for me, it's the inverse.
Yeah.
It's a way to give the freedom for the inhabitants to not be characterized by a certain space and not another one. And for me, in housing design, there is always a question of equity, because if you want to have a collective life, you have to share the privilege in equivalence, and geometry is a strong tool to discuss about this. And sometimes I make this reflection by myself that when I saw the pattern, I said, well, it seems to be so constrained, but they are a sort of tool to make a sort of freedom, in fact, and to make connections, because actually the society is closing every relationships between all together. So now we have to make a sort of geometric things to battle with this problem. That is a social problem, I think.
Very good. Any question for Sophie? Yeah, Paolo.
Sophie, I'm always in awe of the work and the challenges that are built into it. And it seems to me that you've done one thing, which is revolutionary, and I would like to know the consequences of this. In the first project, you put two categories of housing spaces together that are never together. Private servicing space and public service space. So bathroom and collective spaces. This is a no-no zone in the history of housing. So we don't have it in traditionally. So we have it in Northern Europe. We don't have it in Southern Europe and in Northern Africa because there are cultural mores that have to do with the privacy of private space. So given that your housing houses a large conglomerate of people with different backgrounds, have you found difficulty with this particular typology, depending on where the residents come from?
I don't make each project with this.
Non, je sais. Le deuxième est là-bas. Hein?
No.
C'est pour ça que je...
So you're talking about the project of Dijon, the first one?
Oui, Dijon avec l'espace au centre.
Yeah. No, there are no really problem if we compare to the problems that they have in a conventional dwelling. But they organize the central room in different ways, in fact. Some of the people are having dining, I made a dining place with a big table, and other one made an office, a little office, a table to work together. And what is nice is that there are no living rooms and bedrooms, but just a collection of little living rooms that can be individual or collective. So the users are really opening, and each one, it's really different because in each bedroom you can have a double bedroom, you can have your desk, you can make sports. So the living room is empty, in fact. So it's a huge living room. So it allows new things, but it doesn't give the quality of the ancient model. So
particular cultures requires filter between public and private. So women in particular cultures cannot be seen coming out of bathrooms into a public area, and that's where the traditional typology comes from. In your case, sanitary facilities have direct access to, and so that's what I'm referring to.
Yes, you know that in fact for our clients in the book they give me, it was an impossibility to do this, but we proposed another quality, and it's like the other project where the client didn't saw that we put two core. And we said, well, perhaps it's a problem, but in fact there are so much qualities that can appear if we do this, that at the end we make this choice to have new qualities because it's better for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.